It would be a little unkind to present this picture without just a word of friendly warning. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Hey there. The name's Kevin Cross, artist. Or at least that's what's painted on the outside of the door. But really, I'm just another mug using creativity and a little bit of defiance to navigate these modern times. Oh, excuse me. For a minute there, I thought I was in one of those old film noir pictures. Today, I'm combining some of the things that I really love. I'm illustrating my favorite classic horror icon, and I'm going to make a skateboard graphic out of it. And what inspired me to do this all came from a song. I was just listening to one of my playlists when a song by the Ramones came on. It was Outsider, my favorite track from their Subterranean Jungle album. As a young punk, hearing Joey Ramone sing, "I'm an outsider, outside of everything," was all it took for this song to become an anthem for me. And now, at my current age, it still is. Maybe even more so. From all the conformity I see, all the way to the great blanding of our modern culture, using another lyric from the song, it disturbs me so. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not 100% sure what made me the way I am and why a song like this would be so anthemic for me. But when I was just a small fry, it was apparent that there was something different. When the Scholastic Book Fair came around, my classmates got excited about getting books like Super Fudge by Judy Blume or Clifford the Big Red Dog. And I kinda liked that stuff too, but I preferred to take my allowance down to the corner store to see if they had the latest issue of Fangoria or Famous Monsters of Filmland. I'm not sure if it was just because of how young I was at the time, or where I lived and the school I went to, or maybe it was because this was the dawning of the Satanic Panic. Whatever the case, this got me labeled as the creepy kid by my peers, and my square teachers kinda treated me like the most likely to sit in the electric chair, or get a life sentence behind bars. And back to that Ramones song. Everybody tried to push me around. Everybody tried to put me down. It's really no wonder why I developed such an affinity for Frankenstein's monster. Here, let me explain. When I was very young, I caught a movie late night watching creature features on KTVU Channel 2, hosted by Bob Wilkins. That movie resonated with me then, and it's stuck with me since. I couldn't get enough, and anytime a movie with the word Frankenstein was on TV, I was there to watch it. Some were good, some were god-awful. But in any case, none of them hit me like that first 1931 Universal Pictures film starring Boris Karloff. But still, I loved it so much that I tried to get my hands on any magazines, comic books, model kits, toys, or any other merchandise that had anything to do with Frankenstein. And most Saturday mornings, I poured a giant bowl of cereal and sat on the floor, hoping that I didn't miss one of my favorite cartoons.
If this continues, in no time at all, the world will be powerless.
It looks like the dirty work of that wicked wizard of electronics, Dr. Shock.
And there's only one way to stop him, son.
Right, Dad. Time to call on our ingenious invention, that fearless fighter of foul play, Frankenstein Jr.
Hello, Buzz.
In 1816, at 18 years old, Mary Shelley began writing Frankenstein, or the modern-day Prometheus. The first edition of her book was published on New Year's Day in London in 1818 when she was only 20 years old. Around 175 years later, when I was around her age, I finally read the source material for all my fandom. And then I really understood why I felt sympathy and a kinship with Frankenstein's monster. From my view, looking at the first 1931 film and Shelley's book, the monster was, quote-unquote, born as an innocent, good child. He was curious and wanted acceptance and love, like we all do. He also messed up along the way, as we all do, and obviously to a larger extent in order to add more to the story. But at the core of it all, I think the monster was shunned because he was different. And that's really when he became a monster. I mean, when people are denied connection and compassion, hope can die, and then they can become monsters too. It's a warning. To help understand why Frankenstein's monster resonates with me, I think I was a pretty good kid. Luckily, I had loving and supportive parents, completely different than Dr. Frankenstein.
Leave it alone. Leave it alone.
I loved heroic stories about good triumphing over evil, so I was drawn to comic books, fantasy novels, and a bunch of stuff generally considered geeky. I don't remember why or how, but at a fairly young age, I fell in love with the heavier, more aggressive side of rock and roll, namely heavy metal and punk rock. And I dressed the part. Whatever was trendy or in the mainstream at the time just wasn't appealing to me, and I was happy. Until I went to school and out in the real world, I hadn't realized that the combination of those things made me an outsider. I was bullied through elementary and middle school until a bit of the monster came out of me and I fought back. Even adults. There was a minister's wife and had a couple teachers that called my mother to tell her that I was on drugs and worshiping Satan. Neither one of those were close to the truth. In any case, the outside world constantly reminded me that I was unwanted, and I lashed out. By the time I was 13, I could have become a real monster. Luckily, I was able to channel my rage in healthy and positive ways through skateboarding, music, and art.
I can make a boat.
It's funny to think now that those were considered acts of rebellion back then, but that was a long time ago. The Frankenstein story in the original book and the 1931 film end in tragedy. But I've been thinking, what if, as Frankenstein's monster matured, for lack of a better term, what if he looked at the dark world that he was born into, atoned for his mistakes, and decided that he was better than all that? What if he decided to go up against all his obstacles and become a better person? And that's just what I'm trying to do, because there's still a monster inside of me and I wrestle with him every day. But I made a choice to channel it to create rather than destroy. And that right there is enough to make anyone feel like an outsider these days. It's not always easy or comfortable when you don't fit in with everybody else, but I just don't think I'm wired that way. And I think that's a good thing. It's made me who I am. I used to get in a heap of trouble for drawing monsters in my notebooks during class time. But drawing those monsters eventually led to nearly a quarter-century-long art career. And then there's skateboarding. If you were around back in the day, you probably remember that we were regarded as little criminal juvenile delinquents. And now it's in the Olympics. And because I was an artist, involved in my local skate scene, my first in-house job was in the art room making graphics for a big skateboard company. And I got to keep drawing monsters. For money. Then there's the music. The noise I made was supposedly for ne'er-do-wells going nowhere fast. Somehow that noise I made got some of my bands signed to record labels. As a result, I got to travel all over the place, seeing places and experiencing things that had only been in my wildest dreams beforehand, and meeting other misfits just like me, some of whom have become lifelong friends. So all these things, the art, skateboarding, the music, all these things that made me an outsider at one time, worked out pretty well for me. I guess my point here is that if you feel like a weirdo or an outsider, just embrace it. I've got the inks done, so now it's time to move on to color, and I've got something special planned. You may have heard me bemoan how bland and beige our modern culture has become, so I want to do my part to bring back just a little vibrancy. To tell you why I've chosen the color palette I'm using for this illustration, we need to go back to the golden age of the arcade. I used to hang out at this place where the only lighting came from the video game cabinets, pinball machines, and blacklights. The walls were plastered with blacklight posters of surreal images and celebrations of that time's hard and heavy rock and roll. The kind of rock and roll that the adults back then said was going to send me into the clutches of Old Scratch himself. Everything glowed in counterculture colors you don't see with mainstream eyes. It set an otherworldly scene, and as Black Sabbath blasted out of the overhead speakers, followed by Blue Oyster Cult warning us about the imminent threat posed by Godzilla, I stood there in my denim, the fabric of rebellion. And I realized I was standing in a place where being an outsider doesn't mean you have to be alone. And there you have it. That's where the inspiration for where this palette comes from. In sharing these memories with you today, I'm being flooded with even more. And like I said earlier, being an outsider worked out pretty well for me. But over the past few years, it's been easy to forget sometimes. Life, divorce, worldwide lockdown, and a brick and mortar failure landed me into a changed world on the other side of it all, where stress, depression, and survival became the dominant aspects of my personality. And that hasn't been working out well for me. So rather than trying to recapture a time that's gone by, or somebody I used to be years ago, lately I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm just remembering who I've always been. And there's going to be a lot more of that around here. Alright, this graphic's done. And I'm pretty stoked with how it turned out. So this one's going to be available in my skate shop, linked in the description below. And if I've done this right, it should glow with a black light. But I know a lot of people don't have one. So, as a bonus feature, this one also glows in the dark. On occasion I get asked if I have prints available, so if you don't want to write it, here's one to hang on your wall that's sturdier than one on paper. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and until next time, don't forget who you are. Stay weird.